This is TWiT.
Tech Break is brought to you by ACI Learning. ACI Learning has all the tools your employees need to make your business thrive. Give your team the gift of enjoyment while learning. Courses are entertaining and binge-worthy, keeping your team interested and vested in their learning. Visit acilearning.com and give your IT team superpowers with ACI Training.
Problem there, the GPL is pretty straightforward.
It's straightforward, but it is really, really hard to sell. I have an old friend, now sadly deceased, who was at one of the big companies and very friendly to open source in general. And every time we talked about the GPL, he would say, "I don't know what to do with that." And in a similar way, the way it's phrased, it sounds restrictive. And there's an additional problem, which is we have tried hard to get certain name brand free software advocates here who would be, I would think, good at explaining the GPL, who won't come on because our own production chain is not entirely free, as it were. We make practical choices that then include some stuff that they don't approve of, and so some of the advocates we just can't get on here. So that's an additional issue that makes it harder to sell. And I don't know if you have any additional thoughts about that, except is there a one-liner you use by any chance to get the GPL across to people?
Well, I don't find myself pushing the GPL. My personal preference is that's my favorite license. I'm a big believer in the fact that there is a need for proprietary software. Even I don't judge people from using proprietary software. I maybe have. I know I have some proprietary software on my machines. I also think that maybe Linux would have done better if it had been under a BSD type license or the MIT or Apache, but because distro owners would have been able, at the time when people were selling shrink-wrapped software, to have come up with a killer distro and start selling it without knowing that people could also download it for free. So I'm not a hardcore free software. If it's not free, you shouldn't use it sort of person. I think to me, that's an entirely wrong approach to take, even though I do understand people that do take that position. But being a fanatic is being a fanatic, I think, no matter which side of the fence you're on.
We need our fanatics, though. That's
absolutely, yeah.
In
the hippie days, we had a lot of fanatical far left-wing groups that, God save them, they were great, they were helpful, but they were really difficult to be around because every word you said was either wrong for this reason or wrong for that reason, and you were being counter-revolutionary, and but they served a useful purpose because they kept us aware. And I think that's true of the people that just absolutely insist that everything has to be free.
So how do you feel about putting the GNU / in front of Linux? Is that something you do?
No. When I first started phosphorus, my rule on that was sort of like the AP's rules on a lot of things. Is first use I would use GNU Linux, and then after that it would just be Linux. I think that's it. That for those who believed in that war has been lost. It's over with. I ran a survey and it got a lot of open source people that are fairly well known in the community on phosphorus maybe 10 years ago, and to a T, everybody said that, forget it. I got an email from Richard Stallman about 10 years ago and said, could you please do the right thing and call it GNU Linux? And I said, well, what I will, and I answered him, and I says, well, what I will do is I'll call it GNU Linux on the first mention, but after that, just drop it to Linux. And I never heard back from him. So